Once upon a time, in the golden land of Egypt, there ruled a mighty Pharaoh whose name has long been forgotten by history. Legends spoke of his unparalleled power and the vast wealth he amassed during his reign. Known as the Pharaoh of Eternal Splendor, he was said to be buried in a tomb befitting his divine status. Centuries passed, and the Pharaoh's tomb became nothing more than a distant myth. However, an intrepid archaeologist named Dr. Amelia Hartley, fueled by a lifelong passion for ancient history, believed that the legend held a glimmer of truth. She dedicated her life to uncovering the tomb and revealing the secrets it held. Dr. Hartley's journey began with meticulous research, deciphering cryptic texts and studying ancient maps. Her relentless pursuit of the truth led her deep into the scorching Egyptian desert. Accompanied by a team of skilled excavators armed with modern technology, she set out to unravel the enigma of the lost tomb. Weeks turned into months as the team delved deeper into the unforgiving desert sands. Then, one fateful day, their perseverance bore fruit. Hidden beneath layers of time, they stumbled upon an ornate entrance, guarded by colossal statues of jackal-headed deities. The team knew they had discovered something truly extraordinary. As they cautiously entered the tomb, the air grew heavy with anticipation. The narrow corridors led them deeper into the heart of the burial chamber. Each step revealed hieroglyph-covered walls, depicting the Pharaoh's glorious victory and divine lineage. Finally, they reached the grand central chamber, bathed in the soft, ethereal light filtering through the cracks above. The sight that unfolded before them was nothing short of breathtaking. Gleaming treasures adorned the room, golden sarcophagi, intricately carved furniture, and jewel-encrusted artifacts that whispered tales of the bygone era. Amidst the awe-inspiring spectacle, Dr. Hartley's eyes were drawn to a towering stone sarcophagus at the far end of the chamber. Adorned with precious gemstones and inscriptions of ancient spells, it emanated an aura of mystique power. The archaeologist's heart raced as they carefully pried open the sarcophagus, revealing the mummified remains of the long-lost pharaoh. As they studied the preserved body, they noticed an extraordinary artifact clutched tightly in the pharaoh's hands, a golden amulet pulsating with a soft, otherworldly glow. Eager to understand the amulet's significance, Dr. Hartley retrieved it from the pharaoh's grasp. The moment she touched it, a surge of energy coursed through her body, transporting her consciousness back in time. She found herself standing amidst the pharaoh's court, witnessing the glory of his reign firsthand. Through a series of vivid visions, Dr. Hartley unraveled the pharaoh's life and the challenges he faced. She discovered his profound wisdom, his relentless pursuit of knowledge, and his undying love for his people. The amulet, it seemed, held the key to understanding the pharaoh's true legacy. When Dr. Hartley returned to the present, she realized that her mission was not just about unearthing ancient treasures, but also about preserving the pharaoh's wisdom and sharing it with the world. With the knowledge she had gained, she dedicated herself to studying and translating the texts within the tomb, deciphering the pharaoh's teachings and principles. The tomb of the Pharaoh of Eternal Splendor became a beacon of knowledge and inspiration. Scholars and historians flocked to the site, studying the ancient writings and incorporating the Pharaoh's wisdom into modern society. Dr. Hartley's discovery brought the long-lost Pharaoh back to life, ensuring that his legacy would endure for eternity. And so, the tomb of King Pharaoh of Egypt became more than a testament to a forgotten ruler. It became a gateway to the past, a bridge between ancient and modern worlds, and a source of timeless wisdom for generations to come.